I was in the barrels in the playground, which if you lived in New York City, there were these big cement barrels. And when you talked to them, they echoed, echoed, echoed. And I loved being in there with my three best friends, Danny Mendelbaum, Stephen Schaff, and Paul Smith. And we would go in every day, and the day that this happened, I had shown them how to bite toenails. And it was a big deal. Stephen Schaff vomited. And then Danny Mendelbaum asked me if I knew where babies came from. And I knew everything. And I said, yes, the man puts his penis into the woman's, and he pees. And that's sex. And he looked at me and I said, no, it's true. And if she pees, she gets pregnant. Later that night, I could hear the Mandelbaums and the Scharfs and the Smiths talking to my parents, and there was a lot of raised voices. And my sister was in the room, and she kept saying, "You're in so much trouble." I didn't know why I would be in trouble because it was so clear that I was smarter than them. I was flipping the ball in the air and catching it, and my father walked in, and he said something, and I took my eye away from the ball, and it hit me in the eye. And my eye blew up, and we were all in the bathroom, and my mother was wiping it with peroxide, and she said, "How would you have ever told the boys that?" And I said, "I don't know. I mean, I saw you and Dad in bed once doing it." And she was like sort of swaying, and she said, I said, "Are you mad at me?" She said, "No, I'm not mad at you. I'm just a little confused." And I said, "No, that's the way it was." She said, "No, it's okay." And so she looked at my father and she said, "This one is going to be TROUBLE." And I got into bed that night and I said to my father, "What does it mean? Tell me what it means." She said, "No, I'm not telling you." And I said, "It means trouble. Trouble." And I laid in bed for hours going, trouble. This one's going to be trouble. And I was so thrilled. I wanted to be trouble. And I fell in love with words. And I wanted to be a writer from that day forward. And every teacher I had said, "You'll never be a writer. It'll never happen." And so I quit school. And I became a writer. Against all odds, I would say. And I still continue to be trouble. And about a year and a half ago, my husband, who's an artist, a visual artist, got this in the mail. And it said that the town of Saugerties was doing these fiberglass horses that artists could cover in whatever they wanted to, and you had to apply. And I'm a writer, but I love the idea of being an artist, and I thought it would be so great. And so I said to him and the kid who works with him, I said, "Could I do one? Could you guys help me do one?" And they said, "Yeah, what would you want to put on it?" I said, "Words. We could put words on it." So we filled it out and we wrote just, I think, the word "word" a lot, and we sent it in, and it had to be approved, and then it had to be bought by somebody, and it was very exciting. And my favorite store in Saugerties bought it. It was going to be in front of her place, and then we got it, and it was three-dimensional, and it was about 3 foot high, and I hadn't really thought about how you would do that, and so I thought about writing it on, but the kid who works with us, Mike Hartford, is a genius, and he said, "No, we'll decoupage it, just print out some things." So I'm writing sort of a semi-pornographic novel about a middle-aged couple who has sex in every room of their beach house, but I thought that would probably not be a good thing to take it from, so I threw that out. And then I'm writing this science fiction story about this successful love story between an alien and a human, but I thought that's probably would be good to do it or something. But I am working on a new memoir. It's called I Kid Me Not, and it's about my decision not to have children in Woodstock in the 70s, and there's a lot of drug, sex, and rock and roll. And I thought, what better piece for public art than that? But then I had to get rid of George Carlin's 7 dirty words, which are cocksucker, cunt, fuck, motherfucker. I got rid of all those words, and then I had to get rid of my 3 favorite, twat, douchebag, and dick. So then I thought, probably I should get rid of any mention of Quaaludes, marijuana, secanols, tuinols, acid, heroin, and cocaine. Then I thought about God. Not in that way. When I wrote my first book, I wrote this sentence. "Oh God," said Aunt Tilly. And my editor sent it back like this. "Oh God," said friends of mine who went crazy and joined a cult who thought that a planet was coming and was going to knock us off our axis. And what I was left with was a very, very sweet story about my family. So I thought, okay, this is great. Mike and I just couldn't decide, should it be 14, 28 point, 72 point? We kept printing out little sections and finally decided it should be 6 point.
Wow.
So that when you looked at it, you could read it, but it wasn't shouting at you. And you could all tell that less is more for me, so I agreed to the 6 point. And it took us 18 days. Every day, that's all he did for 18 days was decoupage this thing. And it was just the most joyous time because, anyway, this is what it looked like. And I was wild for it. I mean, I was wild for it. He had done, there wasn't one thing out of, and you could read it and you could see it, and I just loved it. And we finished it on a Tuesday, and we delivered it Wednesday, and it was photographed, and it was being put up Thursday morning. And I was just so excited. And about 9 o'clock Thursday morning, I got a call from the man who ran this, and he said, "We have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "There are people who are offended by what it says." And I said, "What could they be offended about? They've already taken out the 7 words, my 3, the drugs, what's left?" And he said, miscarriage, abortion, pregnancy, and belly. And I got hysterical. And I said, "That's okay, I'll take it back." Because I wanted this thing so badly. And he said, "Oh, no, you don't own it. We own it. So we would destroy it, or you can fix it." So I said, "Well, how could I possibly fix it?" And he said, "Well, maybe you could put black tape over the offending words. But, if you see black tape, you're going to pick off everything." It's a public display. So I went to Mike and Steve, and I said, "I'm throwing a gallon of black paint on it." And they said, "Are you nuts? We worked for 18 days on this, and you're not throwing the black paint." So Mike and I went out to Sorbity's, and we looked around it, and yes, it had abortion, pregnancy, miscarriage, belly. But I hadn't in any way thought that those would be offensive. So we went to Smith Hardware and we bought Sharpies. And we started crossing out those words wherever we saw them. I mean, it's 6 point type. So we did that for about 2 hours. And people were starting to gather. It was this beautiful day. So we went and we bought Sharpies and we gave them to everyone. We said, "Why don't you cross out whatever you find?" And so people were very uncomfortable with that. They didn't. But then they got into the spirit and they crossed out words. And then children were coming and I was saying, "Here, take the Sharpie." And then the police came and they said, "You're not allowed to deface that." We said, "Oh, we own it. We can deface it all we want." And then everybody sort of went away and I said to Mike, "It looks too empty. We need to cross out more, but at this point, what more could we cross out?" And so he came over and he called me over, and there was a sentence that said, "I was so cuckoo for my niece Mara that I used to cram her feet into my mouth." And he crossed it out so it said this: "I was so cuckoo for my niece Mara that I used to cram her blank in my blank." Ad libs. I love ad libs. One of the sentences said, "When I first met Steve, my bank account was so small that he kept shoving change in it so it could stay open." When I first met Steve, my blank was so small that he kept shoving blank in it so it could stay open. It's so much better. And then we found this, which we hadn't seen. It was on the horse's underbelly. It said, "Some nights I would serve his meatballs with canned spaghetti and we would giggle like school kids. Some nights I would blank his blank balls with blank." And so the thing that first turned me on was words, and I love them more and more. And I think if you ever need anything crossed out, I'm your go-to.